Howdy! For today's drawing, I'm actually going to be working on Dark Magician Girl from Yu-Gi-Oh! I figured if I'm going to be working on a really complicated, detailed drawing, I could also show you guys a really cool sketching method that I have to go along with it. I use two main sketching methods. One is just straight up lines and you draw what you're supposed to be drawing, and the second one is actually called a color sketching method. It's exactly what it sounds like. You just draw with colors instead, so you use that to block in some shapes and stuff, and then you go back on top of that and actually sketch things out. I'll actually just go ahead and show you. So first we need a sketch. Let's go make a sketch. So I still start with the pose and I still get some of the details figured out. What I try to do is I just separate one color enough that I can tell what's in front of what's behind what. Other than that, it's just normal sketching. I'd like to think of it as the digital version of drawing with the full thing of charcoal. This is really helpful for when you're looking at a bunch of lines and you don't really have a good sense of what volumes are in space. So I usually reserve this for more difficult drawings. I actually used it for Samus's helmet in a drawing that I've drawn before. I've also used it in a couple of other pieces, as I'll probably be showing on the screen here. But it's just a really good way of sketching where if you're having a hard time telling what is what on the page, you can actually see it before you actually color it. So for this drawing, I made the entire pose like this, and then I actually went back afterwards and I still added the details. So what I did was I added the pose, dropped the opacity, then after that I went in and kind of made a cleanup sketch. And I took that cleanup sketch, colored on top of it again. This kind of sketching is really good for volumetric drawing. That way you can actually see the space that it's taking, you can get a better sense of the idea of the volumes and the shapes and stuff, and it just makes things a little bit easier to figure out. I wanted to do that for this drawing because the pose is kind of complicated, and also there's foreshortening and stuff, and then also her design itself is really, really intricate, so I just decided color sketching might be a little bit easier on this one, rather than me just resorting to a sketch. But by the time I'm done with this, I am going to finalize it into just its own basic sketch. That'll be the sketch that I actually use to color in the end, so I still end up with the same end result as far as the line art for the drawing will go. It's just a different process of going about it. So hopefully anything of what I explained just now will make sense, but I mean, you also get to see it here, so that makes sense, right? Right? So it is day 2. I actually spent most of day 1 actually just figuring out the composition of the drawing and doing more of the color sketching part. So I still need to sketch out some burbs, as you can see by this creatively designed note that I left myself earlier. I'm also going to be working on the line art, and I'm also going to be making the color masks. My goal for today is kind of just to get everything ready. So by the time I jump into it next, I'll be able to just jump straight into the coloring. I guess we could talk a little bit about the line art as well. So I call it line art, but it's still pretty messy. Pretty much what I'm doing is I'm making enough of a generalized sketch that I can tell what's going on, because it won't be there for the final drawing. So I'm not going to make it look pretty, but it is still detailed and specific enough that I can actually use that as a guide for coloring, and it'll still make the drawing look right. So it's, you know, good enough that I can use it for coloring, but messy enough that I can still get away with getting rid of it. So that's kind of the fine-tuned balance that I'm gonna have with that. Anyway, that's kind of what I'm doing here. And I also had a small hiccup with my computer yesterday at the end of the day. So it had to install an update, and it's like, hey, let's break your computer. So it seems like every time that it has an update, it just decides, let's kill his computer. But I've actually fixed it enough times through trial and error that I know what to go into to fix it. Last time I think it took 5 hours. This time I just opened up the computer, smacked it. I was like, no you don't, dude! So I just beat the living daylights out of my computer for like 10-20 minutes, and then it fixed it again. And I was like, all right, nothing like just beating the snot out of your computer if it decides not to work. Art machine work good, or else. Anyway, that has nothing to do with anything. This is the drawing though. I got mail. I just wanted to actually show this to you guys because, like I said, I make a lot of prints, but instead of just having the website make them, I like printing them out so I can actually sign them and then send them to people. I just think it's a cool way to actually get the art. So if you support the channel and you want to get some cool art, prints are available on my website. But in the meantime, I got some. I just wanted to open them. So come with. Let's go. Want to take them all out, but without making a mess. go ahead and open this up. Alright, and I got a couple of different designs for this one, so by the time you're watching this video, they will actually be available on my store, but this is just from the last couple of drawings that I've made. So we have Bayonetta, which is over here. We have Tifa from Final Fantasy. Then we have this one. So this one is actually a commission piece for a place called Octopus Apothecary. So this is a print that's actually exclusive to that place. Like how that one turned out. So that's cool. The last one is of a game I've been playing ridiculously too much of. Fuck. They're all signed, and I do also manually trim them, so by the time you get these, they will be trimmed out. But yeah, so those are the prints that I got. Just wanted to share that with you guys. I really like how they turned out. You can't really tell on camera, but these things are huge. They're all 12 by 18. Anyway, back to the video. Alright, so here's the first technical day of actually recording the details. So I went ahead and I started in right with the clothing, and then I went back for the skin later. This drawing is kind of tricky just because there's a lot of overlap in the design itself. So she has her magician outfit, then there's the floof, there's her hair, there's one hand in front of the other, and then there's a hand from behind and the birds. So there is a lot going on there. So half of the battle is me just trying to keep things on the right layer and in the right place. I am actually liking how this is turning out. I'm just messing with a bunch of different textures and stuff. I'm trying to make her costume kind of shiny because from a lot of the reference images that I'm actually looking at, it is shiny. So I'm like, don't know what this material is in real life or if it even exists, but that's what we're going for. So I'm just trying to get this rendered in. Taking my time with it, and it's weird because I have no real clear final end in sight for how this drawing is going to turn out. Sometimes I'll usually just get an idea and I'm like, okay, this is how it looks in my head. Let's just spend the next several hours trying to make that look like that on the screen. For this one, I only kind of had a vague idea, so there's a bit less of a plan on that one, but we'll see how that goes, and hopefully it turns out okay. So it is the start of the next day and I am feeling a lot better. I actually haven't brought it up in earlier days just because I didn't even think about it. Where I live, we have some high winds that pass through. Very high winds. It actually tore some of the siding off of my house. So, you know, when I've been trying to go to sleep, whenever the wind is blowing, those siding bits that are still hanging on by a thread will smack into the side of the house. So every night, constantly, it sounds like somebody has a baseball bat and is just bashing on the other side of the wall from where I'm at, which means I don't sleep great. So for the last week or so, I've been running on about 4 hours of sleep, and they're finally actually starting to get to fixing it. So yesterday was the first day in a week where I was actually able to sleep for longer than 4 hours, and man, feels great. I actually feel like that's what I needed because in the last couple of days I've been super brain dead and I haven't been able to figure this drawing out. And now today, since I've actually got more than 4 hours of sleep, I'm like, huh, that's wrong. I could fix that. This is great, like when you have your brain back. So note to self, sleep more. The drawing is done. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This was a lot of fun to work on, even though it was a little bit chaotic on my end. If you hear some construction and stuff going on and you hear like smacking, yeah, like that in the background, that's just because, like I said, they're actually still fixing the siding on the house. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the drawing. I will also be having a tutorial video come out in 2 weeks for how I actually make them, because a couple of people have been asking about the prints. I have prints. They ask, how you make them? I'm going to be going through the entire process in detail, but since I actually haven't started the drawing for that yet, I thought it'd be fun to get your guys' suggestions. So if there's any character that you actually want to see as a print that I haven't made yet, leave your suggestions in the comments. I'll go through them, and if it's something cool, I'll go ahead and pick one from there. And now that I'm done with the drawing, there's only one thing left to do.